glad to be here this morning in Celebration Circle. It's Christmas Eve morning, the 31st year that we've been meeting as a spiritual community. It's great to be here playing with this wonderful band, surrounded by smiling faces and festive feeling in the air. But I have to admit it's a little tricky trying to figure out what to say about Christmas in the context of an interfaith community like ours. Part of me wants to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. But there's a larger part of me that feels it's important to say something that will also speak to those of us who aren't feeling particularly merry or holly-jolly this morning. And there are some in this room who may well be dealing with a very real physical problem, a health challenge. Some of us in this room are feeling less than joyful about Christmas because it brings up sad memories, feelings of otherness, or missing loved ones who are too far away. And I'm sure more than a couple of us are deeply saddened by the horrific violence being unleashed in Gaza and in Israel as people fight a horrible war over who owns what part of God's property. Something that seems to make no sense, particularly at this time of year when so many of us are celebrating the birth of the Christ child and the Holy Land being torn asunder. Say nothing what's going on in Ukraine or the tens of thousands of people who are amassed at the border or crossing the border under unimaginably difficult circumstances, just a few miles from where we sit here in comfort and peace in this room. And I know for a fact more than a couple of us are feeling kind of cynical about the over-commercialization of this whole mess, and what I call the Christmas industrial complex. It's unleashed on us every year, starting earlier and earlier. And there's definitely a part of me that wants to face my good friend Suzanne and my good friend Dan, the trombone player who plays trombone in the circle band, but also plays the shofar at his temple on Shabbat. Because I want to embrace an understanding of Christmas that also embraces those of us who have a Buddhist viewpoint or trying to live in accordance to the goddess and her unfolding on the planet Earth. Those of us who have a yoga practice and chant mantras and have gurus. We all don't believe that Jesus the Christ is the only begotten Son of God. And yet we're all invited to the table, I believe, at this time of year to honor and integrate the divine light shining in and around our lives at this time. And I've got to start by admitting, too, that I have deeply mixed feelings about Christmas myself, and I have had since we immigrated to America when I was 5 years old from Holland, where we never celebrated Christmas with presents. Christmas just meant extra long worship services and a very strict Protestant upbringing where Christmas was not about jolly. It was about humility. And there was no Santa Claus coming up on the rooftop on December 24th in Holland. There was Saint Nicholas, Sinterklaas, and his helper Zwarte Piet, who would come knocking on the door on December 5th. Everybody knows that. That's when they would come to knock the door and you go and answer, and there'd be just this bag of presents at the door. And so coming to America and feeling confused about this whole Santa Claus business, not to say that my given name is Rudolph. Yeah, you get it, right? Not even understanding this Christmas thing and being teased about my red nose? What does that mean? I was having trouble enough understanding English, much less what my nose had to do with anything. And if the secular side of Christmas was confusing, the religious part was even more confusing because in my family we took church very seriously. Church played a big part in our household. The First Protestant United Church of Christ, Evangelical and Reformed of New Braunfels, Texas. It was a congregation that had sponsored our immigration to America, and so we were there every single Sunday without fail, and Wednesdays, and choir practice on Thursdays, and youth fellowship on Saturdays, and it was just, and I was that one kid in Sunday school who took the Bible very seriously and always had questions, didn't understand the miracles, and tried to understand the parables, but could not for the life of me figure what Joseph had to do with anything in the Christmas story. But my parents took the Bible seriously, and so I took it seriously, and I studied, and I read from the time I could read. I was reading the Bible and trying to figure out, because I was curious about this amazing sense of mystery and holiness that filled the church every Sunday when I was sitting up in the choir loft in the back. I was in choir from the time before I was 6 years old. I was singing solos. And I would just love the music and the pageantry of church. And I'd see people, falling asleep and, never mind. I was just confused by church. And I was particularly confused by Christmas. But then and now, I felt deeply drawn to the story of the three wise men coming from far away, following a bright star that was mysterious and distant. They didn't know exactly where they were going. They didn't know what they were going to find when they got there. They didn't know they had valuable gifts that were exotic and needed to be brought somewhere to someone that was going to bring more wisdom and light. And that impulse, that mysterious search for something distant, that desire for illumination, that desire to worship and understand something bigger than us, that speaks to me today as it spoke to me then. I believe that sense of searching, of following some distant star, a guiding light, that's ephemeral but still clear. That's something that I think many of us have in common in this room. I don't know all of you, but I've had the opportunity to speak with many of you and many others in the Circle community over the years about the spiritual search and what it is that brought you here to an interfaith place. What led you beyond the teachings of your childhood and try to find something more deeper and broader and wider, something, I don't know. I can't even put it in words, but I know that it's there, and it's a drawing, and it's a searching, and it's a pulling, and it's a enlightening. And I know that many of us have that in common. I believe it's no coincidence that this longing is heightened and multiplied at this time of year as the nights are longest and the cold weather is setting in. Even here in South Texas, it's not that cold, but it's definitely cool. No coincidence that people have been celebrating various festivals of light and cultures around the world since long before Jesus the Christ was born. Because that's a very powerful story. The story of a child born in very humble circumstances to a virgin, born in a cave, who grew up with a spiritual belief that had him persecuted by the authorities, for which he was crucified and died and risen 3 days later. And his name was Mithra, the sun god of Persia, who was being worshipped 1,000 years before Jesus Christ was born. We didn't know that, but now years ago, but now we know that. Through cultural anthropology, we understand that this impulse toward the mysterious rebirth of light and new life in all of us, that's an ancient longing. And that's why we celebrated in such a ritualized fashion. We light fires and feast and affirm hope in the face of fear, light in the face of darkness, warmth in the face of cold. And these celebrations occur ritualistically and annually because A, we keep having the need over and over. We keep facing fear. We keep facing the darkness and uncertainty. That's what it is to be human. We are cognizant as humans, we are cognizant of lots of things, including the fact we're going to die. And none of us like it, none of us want to deal with it, none of us know exactly what that's going to feel like or what happens on the other side of it. Dark, mysterious forces. But the Christmas story and Hanukkah's story and the story of on Bodhi Day, the Day of Enlightenment in the Buddhist tradition, the solstice story is that we can light the fire of hope and face into our fears and face into the certainty of death with the hope of some kind of life, some kind of eternity that we cannot grasp with our minds no matter how much we try. Our human intellectual capacity is vast and has given us many wonderful discoveries and inventions. But that same intellectual capacity is completely, if not useless, then overpowered by the mysteries of life and the depth of our emotions. You cannot argue your way out of fear and sadness and depression. You cannot intellectualize as much as we want how to end war in the world. We cannot figure out how to be brave in the face of a medical diagnosis that's scary. There is no intellectual capacity to deal with grief at the death of a loved one unexpectedly. Those kinds of feelings, those questions, those needs can only be brought to our affect, to our emotional self, to our ritualized self, to our poetic self, to our spiritual self. Which is why we ritualize Christmas and Hanukkah and Bodhi Day and the solstice with feasting and lighting fires and saying prayers and wrapping presents. Because that kind of ritual allows us to feel into hope and joy and love and friendship at a level we just don't have time or capacity to say out loud, I think. Moreover, these celebrations give us important clues and cues about how to see and honor the divine light within ourselves and each other from a spiritual perspective, which is what I'm interested in, which is what I was interested in as a 6-year-old. I'm now interested in 65 years later. 65 years later. I'm grateful that I can look into your face and into your heart and into the depth of your questions and my questions, my heart, and see divine light shining, because that's the truth of who you are. That's the truth of who I am. That's the truth of what I believe we're here to do, is to shine that light into the dark corners of the world, to keep hoping for peace on earth, to keep praying for more understanding and compassion, to keep hoping that today will be the day that I finally learn to do unto myself as I would do unto others, which is joyful and loving and compassionate. And one important clue that the Christmas story tells me, and perhaps it has something to say to you, I don't know, is that it's a story of a powerful baby born in a humble manger in a small town in the middle of nowhere. Because that's a wonderful metaphor that's even the smallest spark of divine light that I can find in myself at the darkest of times. Can be humbly reborn as the Christ child is reborn in me, as the Buddha is reborn in me, as the goddess is born in me. As I'm willing to be humble, as I'm willing to be afraid and angry and sad and separate, all of that sometimes, and still look for that divine spark in me, which is lying in a manger, waiting nothing more than for me to come and see and be and shine. This light feels real. The way that this light shines through me, it feels realer than anything else, certainly realer than people fighting, killing hundreds of thousands of people over holy property. Realer than all that stuff in the mall that Casey invokes so splendidly in the poem. That light, that's the one thing that I know lasts. I see it, I feel it, I see it reflected in you. And I'm grateful knowing that as you and I agree to see the light, to be the light, to spread the light, we are helping evolve the consciousness on the planet, one prayer, one breath, one small action at a time. I don't do it just because it feels good. And it feels good. I don't do it because I'm important, and what I do is important. So too, I invite you to tap into the feeling as Zet leads us in a meditation, a few moments as I sing a song of blessing. I invite you to feel that what you've been looking for, what I've been looking for, is what the wise men were looking for, has been waiting for us all along, is waiting for us now, away in the manger, right here, in the heart of my heart, in the heart of your heart. At least, that's my story, my version of the Christmas story, but I'm sticking to it.
I invite you to prepare for this time of meditation, this time of reflection on the divine light, the light which abides all around and deep within you. This is a powerful journey inward as you feel and experience this light as the many gifts, as the reason for the season. Focusing on the light can bring you to a place of peace that truly passes all understanding, all spiritual labels, all expectations. So now, with eyes open or eyes closed, won't you breathe deeply and gently, welcoming and focusing on the spot located at the center of your forehead, just above the bridge of your nose. This point that is a very real physical spot in your body, but also a metaphysical resonance. It's vibrating at the core of who you truly are, vibrating through every cell and fiber of your being. Use your divine imagination to employ your visual sense as you see the light, as you feel the peace which forms and informs the whole of you, of everything which surrounds you. It is the light of the sun, giving life to all on planet Earth. It is the light of the Holy One, reverberating through all of creation. It is the light of the Christ child, being born and reborn in you. And it is the light of divine consciousness made manifest in each and every one of us as we open to the possibilities of conscious co-creation. And whether you feel fully aflame and bursting with this living light, or able to locate a tiny spark, know that this light is divine and fills all spaces and all time. It is more than enough light to show your way forward on this path we call life. As it shines for us one day at a time. Today, and now, in this moment, now, and now. And now. And in the silence of this moment, in the safety and the comfort of this space we've created, you are invited to release all judgments, to choose anew, to see the seeming contractions of darkness for what they are, and then feel the power in choosing to align yourself with the expansiveness of this eternal light flowing to you, through you, as this amazing peace, as a divine presence right here, right now. And there is nothing you need to do to make this happen. For you are focusing your attention on what is and always has been moving through you, to you, as you, today and every day. You are a radiant star. You are a radiating center of the Christ light, the divine light, the one light. Feel that you are not alone in this process. For there are many others in the Celebration Circle community sharing it with you. Some sitting here right now in this room, some not physically present, but very much joined in this consciousness, along countless others all around the world. And even as we feel our fears, we are unafraid, for we find hope in welcoming and embracing the divine light. We find hope in the light we are kindling here in the circle. Hope in one another's presence. Hope in our songs and prayers and silences. Hope in our actions, taken one step at a time. Hope in this very moment. A moment full of possibilities for peace, justice, and well-being for all. We affirm that the divine spark is alive and burning in the heart of each and every being on the planet. And we reaffirm our willingness to see, to feel, to nurture, and to support that divine spark within ourselves, each other, and all we encounter. May all beings be blessed as we remember and affirm. Let there be light. Together, let us speak this affirmation aloud 3 times. Let there be light. Let there be light. Let there be light. And won't you close that with one clap of your hands? And so it